TTRPG players, when I say encounter, what comes to mind? It's combat, isn't it? Of course it's combat. I hate this. This is wrong. We're going to fix it. Hi, welcome to Fapop. I'm Alice Poole. I'm an experience designer, and let's talk about encounters. Dungeons and Dragons revolves around three supposed pillars of play: combat, social, and exploration. Which means if you play any tabletop RPG, we've inherited this same structure, but no one ever uses it, least of all D&D. And technically, an encounter is any scene with a purpose, and it will fall into any of these pillars. Combat just happens to be the one D&D cared the most about, which means it's the one we all care the most about, and we neglect the other two. But there are so many interesting encounters you can have. Let's go through the different kinds. First, we have combat. I'm not going to waste your time explaining what combat means. If you've played one of these games, you know. Though I want to give a few specific pointers to make your combat a little better. Do you just have two sides punching back and forth at each other to the death in a field? That stinks. It's boring. If you have any characters who have movement-based abilities, you are not giving them a chance to really use their abilities. Don't be afraid to play with enemies coming from different angles or use heights to give meaningful options to all of your players. Second of all, don't have every enemy always fight to the death. Who does that? If you were in a fight, would you fight until the death? If so, go to therapy. For most people, fighting to the death is an exceptional thing. You'd only do that if you were truly out of your mind or driven by honor to an exceptional and defining degree. Surrender, retreat are normal, even for many animals. Even for enemies attacking your players, they might want to capture them or just knock them out and run away. Why is everyone always trying to kill each other? That's weird. And third, don't obsess over perfectly fair balance. Not every fight should be one your players can easily and consistently win. It's okay to have a really big, scary dragon. It's okay to have little slimes. And that makes you question whether or not you should pick this fight. Engaging in the combat is one of the choices of the combat encounter. Deciding whether you get to do that choice you want to do is another interesting part of the combat encounter. I'm tired of talking about combat. Let's move on to something more fun. Social encounters. Like any other monopillar encounter, think of this as a novelty. Pure social encounters can just be a shopping trip. Pure social encounters can be a funny bit scene with some traveler on the road. You can get a little Monty Python with it. Pure social encounters can also be really scary. A skeleton in a dungeon just laying there, long dead, not wanting to fight, but just saying creepy things, wanting to talk a little. It doesn't have to be useful. You should focus on the characterization, the tone, the vibes. That makes a social encounter way more memorable. And it would focus way more on the personalities or the situation comedy of where and what they're talking about, rather than trying to do an accent. You don't need to do the voice. It's okay. And you can convey way more about a character and who they are and what's going on in a way that's more memorable by just focusing on those other things instead. If nothing else, focusing on what this person, the player's talking to, wants. So even if you don't know for sure what they're going to say or what the players are going to say or do, you know, based on their motivation, how they will react to it, what their goal is that they are working towards. But pure social encounters can just be fun, flavor. Finally, we get to the underrated, brilliant encounter type, exploration encounters. These are the hardest to conceptualize outright. Most people just think of a trap or a puzzle, usually a puzzle. I don't like puzzles. Puzzles do not naturally exist in the world a lot of the time. What are you talking about? What are you thinking of? What is your reference point for this puzzle? And I think that's the reason why puzzles are so hard to think of, because they're so abstract. They feel inherently video gamey and not grounded like other elements of the story. You also run into problems where players might get it immediately or not get it at all, and pure puzzles are very difficult to pace for. Traps are a bit better. Exploration encounters usually involve the environment, the natural and inanimate parts of it, rather than the people, friendly or hostile. Though, if you can, try to make your traps a bit more engaging than making a saving throw. Like, explore the mechanism, what triggers it, what stops it. Maybe players can engage with the spatial reality of that trap and try to avoid the source of danger or turn it off physically instead of just rolling a die. But that's not what exploration encounters have to be. They can be so much more than that. For me, this really clicked in the game Hollow Knight. Yes, you explore, you platform, you fight lots of enemies, and you can talk to some notable NPCs. But there are also parts of the game, some rooms, if you're a curious explorer, where there is seemingly nothing at all. And then you'll find it. Maybe it's just background art. Maybe it's a sign you can interact with. Relics of a forgotten time. This can include transcriptions of lore told through not so reliable narrators, scraps of signs or poetry or music. Finding a book is a great example of this. This gives a voice to your setting, even though it's not through a voiced character, which means there's more room to interpret, and you can know less for sure about who you should trust or how much. If you want to add that realism to your setting, have more exploration encounters. Exploration encounters can also just be some artifact without words, a statue, ruins of an old house. What happened here? Make allusions to history, however incomplete. These can also add to the tone of your setting, but feel more authoritative about the timeline and the events that happened here and what this place actually is. You can insinuate a lot about culture and religion through an old statue. Is it in good condition? Is it abandoned? Is it actively defaced? These all say different things about who was here before. Exploration encounters can also include the discovery of any item, like a magic weapon. Anything in a chest, really. Sometimes that item can just be alone. It doesn't need to be a reward after a fight. If you find a room with the old skull of a dragon and a sword sticking out through it, that tells you something. There was once a dragon here, and that dragon was slain. But, as much as that would seem a heroic scene, why did they leave the sword? The art of exploration encounters is in raising questions and answering them. But it doesn't need to do either quite well. If you thought there were just 3 types of encounters, good job. I lied to you. There are more. This is all really just one construct for looking at it, but even within this construct, we can push it a bit further. As I said earlier, any of these motto pillar encounters, in its purest form, should be a novelty. Ideally, most encounters combine more than one element. We can start with exploration social encounters. This is any investigation scene. It's mainly talking to people, but you're looking for that information. You're trying to learn more, access new places, and see who's there. You may mix interviews with finding excerpts of old books or notes written by people at a scene. The Knived Out movies are perfect examples of pretty much social exploration encounters constantly, back to back. A social combat encounter is great because you combine the external pressures of combat right in the middle of a social scene. These were great for ambushes or things people have been putting off for too long. It's all too easy to dismiss this as an enemy who you can talk to instead of fight, and it could go either way. Those are great. The climax of the original Fallout game is one of those, and it's brilliant. But that's less a social combat encounter and more an encounter that can become a social encounter or a combat encounter. Social combat encounters, ideally, are both at once. The climax of Pirates of the Caribbean 3 has 2 characters, Elizabeth and Will, trying to get married because they've wanted to for a while and it's maybe their last chance. They're doing this in the middle of a multi-pirate ship sword fight, and it's storming. A lot is going on. It's excellent. They have to get through a conversation with Barbossa, the old ship captain, trying to marry them, while all of the combat events are interrupting. This is a fun way to juggle multiple tones all at once. I love dropping social dilemmas, like any kind of love triangle situation, in the middle of an inconvenient ambush fight as well. Or maybe you can talk down a character from fighting. After the fight's already started, there could be several enemies. One is a bit more on the fence. Can you convince them and make them flip sides mid-fight? It would be a great advantage if you could. And it's not just you talking to them. The enemies could as well. They hear you, they see you. It can make fun for an argument to break out on top of all of the physical altercations already happening. Then we have exploration combat encounters. One thing you can do with pure exploration encounters is tutorialize a mechanic, a button that controls lights or makes some big machines start to spin or come alive. It would seem like a nothing point of interest on the way, just to set the flavor, but then you have your exploration combat encounter, where you play with these interactive map elements in the middle of a fight. Exploration combat encounters could also include alternative objectives, such as solving a puzzle before 3 rounds of combat, and you could do one thing or move one piece as an action. Another great example is football. Yes, you are attacking each other, but the real goal is to find some object being thrown around the fight. Can you get to it and get it where it needs to go? The art of an exploration combat encounter is to make sure you can't just focus on any one thing. The exploration elements can make things easier as well as make it harder. But this is a great way to make your combat encounters way more dynamic, or to make your exploration encounters far more inconvenient. Finally, there is a 7th type of encounter, though I don't know what that would be. An encounter that is simultaneously a social encounter, a combat encounter, and an exploration encounter. It should be possible, right? But honestly, I just don't think I would have the budget for that in a session, mentally or literally. I would want props, though I'm not sure how. I don't know. What do you think? Do you have an idea? But that is my quick guide to encounters. Social, combat, exploration. Try to mix and match the pieces if you can. It's good to have at least 2 in any one encounter, and it's good to not go more than 2 sessions without having each pillar covered somewhere. The player types at your table will show interest in different types of encounters, and you should adjust your mix accordingly, but always keep them on their toes just a little bit. I love exploration encounters, but a game of just that would bore me too. Maybe a little variety is the spice of life, but I'm putting a little garlic on everything. I wanted to talk about these 3 types of encounters because they're important to a lot of bigger topics I want to cover in the future, such as encounter chains or overall session planning. So I hope this helped. Let me know what the coolest encounters you've been in are and what made them work. If you want to support me, you can do so at paypop.com/join. I make indie games and you can check them out. You can also become a member and get a special role in my Discord and get your name in the credits around here. Until next time, thank you.